Hey folks, welcome back to another episode here at Time Out Kitchen. Today we're going to be making some very tasty and very easy oven-baked ribs. Now, you might be asking yourself, why not go with the smoked ribs, which have that classic smoky flavor, the iconic pink smoke ring, and let's face it, simply superior flavor? Well, that's because I don't have a smoker and because these ribs will be made in around half of the time, while of course still packing in a ton of flavor. So stay tuned until the end to see exactly how much time and how much these will cost you. So with that being said, grab yourself a rack of pork ribs. Now you can use any type that you want, baby back, spare ribs, or St. Louis style, it's totally fine. In this case, I'm using some center cut side ribs. The beauty of this recipe really is that it works for any style. Just make sure you have a cut with a good meat to fat ratio like we have here. Now, of course, we're not going to throw these in the oven like this. We got to make ourselves a dry rub. So go ahead and grab yourself all of the ingredients that you see right here. Now, I know it looks like a lot, but really this is just a simple dry rub that's going to be consisting of a half of a tablespoon of ground ginger, 1 tablespoon of smoked paprika, and I do emphasize smoked paprika, guys, because again, we don't have a smoker. You'll want 1/2 tablespoon of cayenne, or more if you'd like a little bit more spice, 1/2 of a tablespoon of ground cumin, 1 full tablespoon of garlic powder, 1/2 of a tablespoon of chili powder. For some sweetness, you're going to add 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, followed by 1/2 of a tablespoon of salt and pepper. And finally, even though I didn't point to it, you're also going to want to grab yourself 1 tablespoon of onion powder. Now, I know this seems like quite a lot of spices, but trust me, you're going to want all this because, again, we don't have a smoker and we want to make sure every inch of our meat has that dry rub. So with that done, let's not forget we want to build up a nice lacquer using our barbecue sauce, so go ahead and grab your favorite barbecue sauce, or you can make your own like I did and get the right balance of sweet and heat. Another trick you can use is actually to add a bit of your dry rub directly into a barbecue sauce that is pre-made. I find that usually helps balance it out and kind of matches your flavoring a little bit better. And there you go. That's literally everything you will need to make a delicious, meaty, melt-in-your-mouth rack of ribs in your oven. And that reminds me, you know what else is meaty and melts in your mouth? B-roll. Alright, with that beautiful B-roll out of the way, it is time to prep our ribs. So go ahead and flip these over because we've got a spoon in our hand and we need to remove this membrane. So go ahead and gently try to lift this away from the bone, and once you get a bit of separation, you can go ahead and use your hand, or in my case, some paper towel, to go ahead and take that off. Now, some people say you don't need to do this, but I do think it helps make these a little bit more tender, and it is optional, but I do highly recommend you peel this off. With the membrane removed, you should have something that looks a little bit like this, and there's no use to this. This is going to go right in the garbage. So go ahead and throw that away, and then move your ribs to the side because we have to prepare our dry rub. So in a medium-sized bowl, dump your spices from your highly impractical spice holding platform and carefully drop those spices into said bowl. Again, this was not practical, I do not recommend. Anyways, with all your spices in the bowl, go ahead and give this a quick mix, making sure to incorporate this all into a nice smooth blend. Should look something a little bit like this, a sort of brown red sandy texture. So with that done, let's replace this with our ribs and then go ahead and begin the process of coating this in our dry rub. So you're going to want to be pretty liberal with the amount of dry rub that you use because this is going to be where all of our flavor comes from. Now again, don't be afraid to really coat this because anything that can't stick will simply fall off and we can use it for other purposes. With one side coated, just flip this over and go ahead and coat the backside where you remove the membrane. And again, this looks like a lot, but it's going to be absolutely worth it. And when that's done, just flip this on its side and go ahead and scrape up all those extras. With your ribs thoroughly dry rubbed, well, you should have something that looks a little bit like this. Now this is usually where this would go right into the smoker for about 8 hours, but that's not what we're doing, so let's go ahead and move this to the side before grabbing our secret weapon, some aluminum foil. And you're going to want enough of this to basically wrap around the ribs. I recommend 2 large pieces, and then you can kind of crimp the edges around it. But I'm going to show you how that's done, so go ahead and place your ribs in the center before grabbing your second sheet of aluminum foil. Then it's just a matter of crimping it down like I said, so you don't have to do anything special here. You can leave a little bit of space between it, but basically make sure every edge is sealed. Once that's done, you should have a nice neat little package that is ready for the oven. So grab your cookie sheet, place those ribs on there, and let's go to the oven. So you may be wondering what to do with yourself while these ribs cook in the oven at 350 degrees for about an hour and a half to 2 hours, and the answer is I don't know, but with the magic of editing, those ribs are now ready. So go ahead and remove those ribs from the oven and carefully remove that top layer of foil. Just be mindful for the very hot steam that comes out. Now here you can see that the ribs are quite tender. However, if you want to leave them a bit longer, that's fine, but I like mine to have a little bit of chew. But we're not done here. It is time to add our first layer of lacquer, so grab your barbecue sauce and gently brush this over top. Now, you don't have to do multiple layers. You could literally just sauce them like this and eat them, but we're trying to make a nice, beautiful crust. So go ahead and put your first layer. Be pretty generous because this is going to go back into the oven on high heat as a broil. So after about 5 minutes, go ahead and pull those ribs out and spread over your second layer of barbecue sauce. Now again, you can use as much or as little sauce as you want, and you could eat these right now, but I do recommend taking the time to lacquer this up one more time before throwing these back in the oven on broil for about another 5 minutes. After 5 more agonizing minutes, you should see ribs that look like this. We're gonna put our last layer of barbecue sauce down, again, trying to make it look as dramatic as possible before gently brushing this down and making sure that we've got everything evenly coated. Now this is going to be our finishing layer of sauce. You could of course put these back in the oven if you want, but let's be honest, these look pretty delicious. I mean, look at the color. The meat is pulled slightly away from the bone, and you can see a nice layering and caramelization from our lacquering. All we gotta do now is cut these in half so you can see what we're working with. Now, of course, this isn't going to be the most jaw-dropping of cross sections, but you can see even though we don't have that smoke ring, we do have a nice cross section. It's fatty, it's glossy, and it's well cooked. Now all that's left is to plate up, so go ahead and grab a plate and grab your ribs and stack them on high. As a finishing touch, grab some parsley and sprinkle that gently over top, and there you go, you've got yourself a beautiful plate of oven-baked ribs. They're sticky, they're delicious, and they even have a slight smoky flavor from the combination of your barbecue sauce and from all that smoked paprika. The beauty here is all that's balanced out by that wonderful sweetness from the brown sugar and of course the barbecue sauce and a little hint of that spice from the cayenne. So we're about to dig in here, except that this one rib is going to fall over and ruin our whole shot. So go ahead and fix that, and then go ahead and eat that one first as our first sacrifice. And you can see, guys, that this meat is a lot more tender than you think. Again, if you were to leave these in the oven for another 20 or 30 minutes, you'd have a bit more tenderness, but I do like my ribs to have a little chew. And as you can see, these are going to be a hit at any get-together. They're super simple, they're tender, they're fatty and delicious, and there's a beautiful smokiness that comes in from all of our spices, as well as a great balance from the sweet and the heat. Oven-baked ribs often get a bad rap when compared to smoked ribs, but these pack a ton of flavor in less than half of the time. And you may be asking yourself, well, how much time? Well, these took exactly 2 hours and 13 minutes from start to finish and cost just $3.50 per plate. So you can put that in your barbecue and smoke it. And with that, guys, we're done. So thanks so much for watching until the end of the video. And as always, thumbs if you liked it, subs if you loved it. We will see you in the next one.